Okay, world. Hi, this is my second video. Um, and today I'm going to speak about some classic movies on my channel. This is Classic Movie Time. And the movie that I'm going to speak about is called If It's Tuesday for all you classic movie buffs. It was aired in 1969. It's a romantic comedy that was directed by Mel Stewart. It was made by Wolper Pictures and released by United Artists. Okay, the film stars Suzanne Pleshette, Ian McShane, I believe that's Mildred Natwick, and Murray Hamilton. And the movie takes place across. It's about a bunch of Americans going on holiday. It's a hilarious movie. Going on holiday across Europe, and basically the movie is about like stereotypical American. It's a classic comedy, and the movie talks basically types stereotypical Americans, specific types of Americans that go on vacation across Europe, and it's actually quite a funny movie. Throughout Europe, they visit historic sites and places all across Europe. What makes this movie great is the classical you see coming through the theme of the movie, the classic American view of why it's very hilarious, it's like why everything should be American. And it's mildly stereotypical in that way, and it portrays like these you know typical Americans on vacation in Europe, and it's basically like, why isn't everything American? You know, why don't they speak English in France? Why don't they speak English in Germany? It's kind of like that. Um, Basically, it talks about why the world should be. It's very subtle, but it shows you like American tourists on vacation in Europe for the first time, and it's kind of like the culture shock that they experience. It's kind of like, no, it should be like this because in America it's like this. And meanwhile, this is like the old world. Okay, one of the humorous parts in the movie is where you see this. Not to give away the whole movie, but just to give you one incentive to look at this classic movie because it's a really good, funny movie. One humorous aspect about the movie, very stereotypical, is the the klepto tourists. Okay, this is a tourist that is traveling for the first time, and everything this person sees is a souvenir and has to come back with them. So we have like archetypal types in the movie. We have like this very stereotypical Jewish couple on vacation for the first time. We have this klepto, this kleptomaniac on vacation for the first time. We have how do you describe him? The tourist that just travels the world for sex, and films it. I'm not saying that these are, you know, but these are the types they cast in the movie. But it's a light comedy sketch, very humorous. Um, but it shows you, the mindset of some stereotypes that travel. It's actually a great movie, and noteworthy to see. Um, so one of the characters in the movie were this couple, sorry, this guy who was the traveling klepto. So basically, he's traveling for the first time, and everything he sees, everything he sees is like a souvenir. So what does he do? There's one scene in the movie where he's in the hotel, and like the I don't want to give away too much of the movie, but he's in a hotel, and the concierge calls upstairs and tells him, okay, it's time to wake up. It's like a 6 o'clock call, and it's their last day in that hotel. So everything in the hotel is basically like antique. So you have like because this is the old world, so you have like antique phones, antique furniture, antique paintings. It's a very old classic. Probably this hotel is, even though it's a small hotel, it's probably like 500 years old. Not saying that telephones are 500 years old. I'm just saying that, you know, the hotel is probably 500 years old, and then everything in it is probably like, you know, at least 100 years old, you know. So anyway, so you know, they this is just one part of the movie I give away because I thought it was hilarious. You know, so the concierge, he hangs up the phone with the concierge in this really creepy, weird voice, and cuts the phone cord and packs the phone cord into packs the phone, sorry, into his suitcase, you know, to take the phone. And to the end of the movie, I'm just gonna give you this one tidbit of the movie, you know, why you should see it. And towards the end of the movie, when they're leaving to take the plane to return to the US, his suitcase falls out of the bus, and all these stolen souvenirs, you know, fall out of his suitcase and basically broke his suitcase because they were literally traveling all over. I think it was more like Western Europe. You know, basically traveling all over Western Europe, you know, and all these souvenirs that he stole from, you know, from hotels, from places, from, you know, night spots, you know, everything on the itinerary, every place on the itinerary that he stole falls out of the suitcase, and it looks like a pile of junk. So much so that he had to leave the suitcase and board the plane. I mean, it was hilarious, you know. So so that's one notable scene in the movie that I thought would be worthwhile for anyone wanting to watch the movie. And another theme in the movie is very interesting, you know. Whenever you see this, you know, it's very unique when you watch these classic movies, you know, movies on the 60s, the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, you know, well, 20s, they really didn't speak too much in movies, but let's say 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, when you watch these classic movies, you know, intertwined into the movie, there's a love story in the movie, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's very peculiar that I notice whenever the American, you know, whenever the American encounters the British, I'm not going to give away any more about the movie, but I've observed whenever the American, you know, an American encounters the British, it's always this, there always comes to play this historical relationship between the two. And I observe that, you know, even in politics, you know, um, even in politics, when you listen to politicians, when you listen to, you know, American politicians and British politicians, well, specifically England, they always speak about this special relation, you know. Or for example, whenever you speak about like the royal family, you know, in the United States, you know, the love of the royal family is as if America never had, you know, a war against the British, not the Civil War, a war against with the British, you know, to break free from, you know, to break away from the British. I'm not making this political. I'm just saying it's very interesting that whenever I see a movie with, you know, a relationship between some sort of relationship between the US and Great Britain, it's always this historical connection that always comes up. And it's very peculiar. It's very peculiar, you know, like this historic relationship is as if they never broke away from England. And what's really interesting is that when you go to England, you know, when you live in America, it's 100%. I mean, England is like old school. You know, when you go to England, it's like, I mean, when I lived in England, I always felt as if, wow, this country's old. You know, everything is old. Like you go through the town and you see like built in 1600s, and you're like, oh my God, that thing is still standing. You know, and it's amazing because when you go through England, everything seems so old, and not old in a bad sense, but historic. Old in a sense that it's an old country, you know, and but it's very different from the United States. Whereas when you live in the United States, it's like everything seems so new, you know. You can even go and visit, you know, you can even visit like historic places, and it's like, it doesn't seem that old, you know. And when you go to Britain, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so historic, that place, you know. But anyway, so in the movie there's a love story And the love story is between, I don't want to give too much away, but it shows you this relationship between Britain and the United States, and it says a lot. It says a lot. So like, I'm not gonna give it away, but it says a lot about that relationship, and how passionate that relationship is. And without, I don't want to give away too much because I want you to see the movie and enjoy the movie. But I want you to note that relationship, and that relationship said more to me than just this love relationship, this love paradigm between the old world and the new world. So I thought that was really noteworthy in the and pay attention to the end. Pay attention to the end. Pay attention to the end when it came to that love relationship. And it's a surprising end to very thrilling. It was a really dynamic love story in the movie. And what's ironic is that it didn't have I don't want to give away too much, but it wasn't your stereotypical Hollywood type of movie. But anyway, another thing that was notable in the movie was another thing that was notable in the movie was, hold one second. Okay. Okay, so another thing that was notable that I thought was hilarious in the movie, which where the outcome was a little bit different, was the tourists in the beginning. Everywhere they went, they complained. I mean, they complain, they complain, they complain, they complain, they complain. Everywhere they went, they complained. But the ending was wonderful, and that reminded me of like when I first traveled. You know, when I first traveled, it's like getting out of your comfort zone and seeing that the world is much bigger than your tiny little world view. You know, and and why is this movie important? It's important because as human beings, we need to travel. We need to travel. We need to experience different cultures. We need to meet new people. And what I like about this movie is that it was a bunch of Americans traveling. And it reminded me of myself a little bit, like when I first started traveling, and I experienced culture shock. Like my first culture shock was, when I went to England. But I didn't live in London. I lived in the north. I lived in the country, you know. And I was miserable every single day. Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my God, the rain, there's no sun. I was, And then when it came down to the end, I missed it every single day. I missed it. I missed the people. One thing I loved about European people, the concept of friendship in Europe is totally different than the concept of friendship in the United States. And this is not a criticism of the United States. This is an observation. Like, for example, when I travel, the concept of friendship in Europe, friendship in like South America, friendship in Latin countries and stuff like that. It's a totally different understanding than when you travel than friendship in the United States. When you make friends in Europe, okay, it's like you make friends for life. You know, it's not the same as here, in the US, where you make friends and then you can fall out with your friend, you can not be friends, you can this, you can that, you the other. The concept of friendship is very different. When you make friends for life. Ups and downs, in and out, thick and thin, they're your friends for life. And it's the same thing I observed in with Latin American countries. When you make friends in Latin American countries, when I traveled, Latin America, it was the same thing. You make friends for life. You know, the other thing I observed was the other thing, and this is why people should travel. this is why I think people should travel, because it will help them to understand that there's a world far beyond their little pea, pea brain thinking. There's a much wider world out there, and you can't stereotype whole groups and races of people, not races, but whole color groups of people because of your experience with one. So I this movie was a great movie because I encourage people to travel, and I encourage people to make friends with different people in the world. And when I say make friends, I mean, make sure you make wise decisions on who you choose as your friends, because there are some downsides with making friends. Make sure you can run a background check, and this person is you know I'm not saying just go out there and make friends with people you don't know. I'm saying, I encourage you to travel, and in your travels, you will make friends, and you will make friends within your circle, people who know people, and you can verify those people and cross-check those people and stuff like that. So, what's the point? What's good about this movie is that it encourages people to travel because there's a whole world out there worth seeing. There's beautiful people out there in this world. And it's important for people to travel because it allows you to see that there is a whole world out there apart from yourself. It also allows you to see the world um, outside of this color coded paradigm where the world is either black and it hates you, or white and it loves you. Most of the world, when you travel, most of the world is not like that. Really, it's not like that. Most of the world is, you know, are you a genuine person? When I travel, that's what I encountered. You know, are you a genuine person? You know what I mean? When that initial barrier is overcome, it's like, are you a genuine person? You know, they kind of look at you like, what are you up to? Are you looking for something? Are you here for something? And when they overcome that barrier, it's sort of like, okay, this is a cool person. So my advice, see this movie and make it your next trip to travel Europe. I hope you enjoyed my little classic movie review, and let me know what you think down below. Thank you.